Hi, I'm Jason Horsch, owner of Xanadu Gallery in Scottsdale and Pinetop, Arizona, and this is a moment in art history. Today, we'll look at Mark Rothko's Seagram Murals, a huge commission that Rothko just couldn't go through with. Commissions have been an important sustaining force for artists for as long as art and artisanship have been professions. From the Marcus column frieze in ancient Rome to the Sistine Chapel frescoes, commissions have resulted in some of the world's greatest works of art. Many artists still create work that has been commissioned by a client. But the role of commissions has changed, especially over the last century, as artists began questioning their relationships with their patrons and seeking more artistic freedom. The story of Mark Rothko's Seagram Murals is an example of this shift. Rothko received the high-profile commission from Joseph Seagram & Sons in 1958. The company had just built the Seagram skyscraper on Park Avenue and asked the artist to create a group of large paintings for the building's luxury Four Seasons restaurant. Rothko accepted, even though the commission presented a new challenge. It was the first time the artist was required not only to design a coordinating series of paintings, but to produce an artwork space concept for a large, specific interior. Rothko rose to the challenge, completing 40 paintings over the next 3 months. The paintings were in 3 series in dark red and brown. And during the process, Rothko switched from a horizontal format to vertical to fit the structure of the restaurant with its columns and tall doors and windows. While the restaurant was still under construction, Rothko and his family traveled overseas. And a journalist aboard the same ship recorded Rothko's true intentions and feelings about the murals. The artist's hope, according to the journalist, was to paint, quote, something that will ruin the appetite of every son of a bitch who eats in that restaurant. He said he wanted patrons to, quote, feel that they're trapped in a room where all the doors and windows are bricked up, so that all they can do is butt their heads forever against the wall. Likely not the effect the Seagram's company was looking for. Once back in New York, Rothko and wife Mel visited the nearly completed Four Seasons restaurant. Upset with the restaurant's dining atmosphere, which he considered pretentious and inappropriate for the display of his works, Rothko refused to continue the project and returned his cash advance to the Seagram & Sons company. The completed paintings for the commission would eventually be dispersed between the Tate Modern, the Kawamura Memorial Museum, and the National Gallery of Art. For most artists, a commission of this scale would have been an honor as well as an important source of income. And the fact that Rothko already knew roughly what kind of space and audience he was painting for makes this abrupt refusal a bit confusing on its face. We'll never know exactly what Rothko's thought process was as he dramatically called off the commission, but examining the artist's life gives us some clues. The disdain Rothko showed for having his work in an upper-class establishment is consistent with the ideals that had been planted by Rothko's parents, who had fled Russia to protect their older sons from being enlisted in the Imperial Russian Army. Rothko's father was an outspoken Marxist, and the persecution and fear he had faced as a Russian Jew made him a fierce and radical advocate for the poor and oppressed. Rothko carried on that legacy after his father's early death, becoming involved in a local Jewish community center and in the industrial workers of the world. Though Rothko's family struggled to get by financially while he was growing up, they believed strongly in the importance of education. Rothko graduated from his high school in Portland, Oregon with honors and received a scholarship to Yale. Yale, much as Seagram's Four Seasons restaurant later would, turned out to be too stuffy and bourgeois for Rothko's tastes. He and a friend created a satirical newspaper, the Yale Saturday Evening Pest, to mock the elitism they saw in their university community. Rothko dropped out at the end of his sophomore year and began working in New York's garment district. He became fascinated with art after visiting a friend at the Art Students League of New York. As the young artist began studying and developing his own voice, he rejected widely accepted traditional styles, instead pursuing surrealism and expressionism. As he settled into his own unique artistic direction, he famously said, quote, I'm not an abstractionist. I'm not interested in the relationship of color or form or anything else. I'm interested only in expressing basic human emotions: tragedy, ecstasy, doom, and so on. Rothko's work was pure emotion, and he worked to distinguish it from the forms and traditions that had ruled over art for centuries. For example, after World War II, Rothko stopped titling his work, referring to his paintings instead by colors and numbers. He believed that titles limited the effect of his paintings. It's pretty clear then that Rothko's desire to reject authority and expectations had a significant impact on how the Four Seasons Restaurant Commission played out. Rothko's biographer, James Breslin, speculated that the Seagram project could have been the artist acting out a, quote, drama of trust and betrayal, of advancing into the world, then withdrawing angrily from it. He was an Isaac at the last moment, refusing to yield to Abraham. I've loved Rothko's work for a long time. I had a client in our Scottsdale gallery just after we opened in 2001. We were talking about favorite artists and he mentioned Mark Rothko. Who? I asked. Somehow, I had never heard of him or run across his work. Now, before you judge me too harshly, I was only 26 at the time and was more familiar with ancient, classical, and impressionistic art. Our client insisted that I check out Rothko's work, and I immediately fell in love. I've spent time with dozens of his paintings in museums over the years, and I always seek out his work when I'm traveling. I read Breslin's biography in 2006, and it only cemented my admiration for Rothko and his work. I've given copies of the book as gifts, and I'm probably due to reread it. Several years ago, my wife Carrie and I saw an Arizona Theater Company production of the play Red, written by John Logan, which centers around the Seagram commissions. An incredibly powerful play, and I highly recommend seeing it if it's produced in your area. Rothko's life ended tragically with his suicide in 1970. The world lost a great artist, but we're fortunate to have the legacy of his art. I would love to hear your impressions of the Seagram murals and Rothko's experience. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining me for this moment in art history. If you enjoyed this bit of art history, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook, or sign up for my newsletter to be notified about future art history videos.